So today we are talking about all things Eastmark, the good and the bad parts of it. So Eastmark is in Mesa, but it's in the very southeast part of Mesa. It's almost its own wing of Mesa. So you're directly east of the 202 and south of the 60. And I would say Eastmark is almost considered like the golden child of all the master plan communities in Phoenix Metro, or at least of the East Valley. And if you aren't familiar with master plan communities, they're these amazing communities that are perfectly curated or carefully designed residential communities that have various amenities. A lot of them have parks, a lot of them have schools even within the communities, and sometimes even like shopping centers or libraries, all sorts of stuff. And Eastmark actually received a lot of awards for their planned community, and as a result of that, it kind of became the blueprint for a lot of other master plan communities in the East Valley, like ones in Queen Creek or Santan or even Apache Junction now. So Eastmark is fairly conveniently located next to some major freeways. Like I said, you have the 60 right above, and then you have the 202 east. But the one thing I would say is you aren't necessarily central in Phoenix Metro. You're about 28 miles from Sky Harbor Airport, and then over 30 miles, I think it's about 34 miles to actual downtown Phoenix. So if you are planning on driving during rush hour, it could definitely take you a long time. So I'm not a big fan of commuting. So for a lot of people, I would say this is not ideal if you have to go to the airport regularly, or if you're trying to work in Central Phoenix and get to Central Phoenix regularly. But there's been a ton of economic development in this area of town. Now, surrounding Eastmark, a lot of jobs have come here. You have Meta or Facebook, Apple, EdgeCore. You have the new Dignity Health Hospital, and of course, a Mesa Gateway, which is our smaller airport in the East Valley. That's also expanding, and they have quite a bit of plans to further expand that airport. We've also seen a lot of new schools come to the area, and then also The Point, which is a retail shopping center in Eastmark. Now, as far as schools go, even though Eastmark is in Mesa, it's actually not in the Mesa School District. It's shared between Queen Creek Unified School District and then Gilbert Public Schools. And if you aren't familiar with these school districts, both of them received A ratings for the last academic year, and I'll put resources below so you can look into that a little bit further. And then there are also several schools within the actual community. You have Eastmark High School, which is pretty much a brand new high school. And then there's also two charter schools that also have received high rankings. You have Bases Mesa and then Sequoia Pathfinder Academy. Also, if you find any of this helpful, please subscribe and share. It helps me a lot. Now, let's talk about amenities, because that's really why people love this community so much. I mean, there are parks everywhere. Some of the playgrounds are pretty epic too. There's walking trails everywhere. And I was actually there a few weeks ago with my friends, and it was around 5:30 at night, and there were a ton of people outside playing baseball, basketball. There were people at the dog parks, people at the skate parks. It's definitely a very lively area. And they even have an 18-hole disc golf course. They have a clubhouse too with a lot of amenities. There's a pool, there's a splash pad, and of course, one of my favorite features, there's Steadfast Farm, and they actually have a farm store where you can get some of the local produce there as well, and some beautiful fresh flowers. And then also, you can't forget about Steadfast Coffee Shop, and then there's also a diner, Handlebar Diner, which is pretty awesome as well. And Eastmark is actually opening their very own library. It should be open sometime this year, but you never know. Now, the other amazing thing about Eastmark are all the community events that they host. I know last Christmas or around the holiday time, they actually had a Christmas fun run called the Jingle Jog. They often have dinner and a movie night in the park. And then they also have First Fridays, and they'll have live music at the pavilion. And then they often have a lot of food trucks there as well. Now, the one thing I personally like about Eastmark compared to some of the other master plan communities, like maybe in Queen Creek, for example, is a lot of the events at some of these other master plan communities are very kid-centric. So they don't often have other events for like the parents or maybe young business professionals. And Eastmark, I would say, targets a lot of different groups of people. Of course, they have a ton of events for kids. It's definitely a very family-focused area, but there's also, I mean, they have some fitness groups and book clubs. So it's not just all for kids. But let's talk about my area of expertise, homes. Eastmark actually has kind of a mixture of townhomes. It's predominantly single-family homes. That's the majority of the homes. And then you also have an apartment complex for rentals as well. Now, you're going to find a lot of resale homes available or homes that have already been lived in, but there are still quite a bit of new build homes as well. And something to keep in mind too is this master plan community is huge, and there's several subdivisions within the community, and a lot of these subdivisions, you'll notice they'll have like a sort of similar style of homes, and then often they have these beautiful green spaces, beautiful parks, pavilions, barbecues, all the good stuff. Now, Eastmark definitely isn't one of the most expensive areas in East Valley, but it's definitely not the cheapest. So you can find some townhomes. I know there's some townhomes for sale right now that are in the very low 400s. However, if you're looking for a single family home, you're probably going to be looking like mid 400s on up. Now, if you're finding a single family home in the 400s, it's probably going to be under 2,000 square feet. Most likely 3 bedrooms, maybe 4. And you do see a lot of the homes in the 500s, 600s, 700s, and then all the way up to 1.5 million. That was the most expensive home for sale currently was about that price point. I would say the one common feedback I get about Eastmark most frequently, the downfall of Eastmark, is the lots are fairly small. There's not a lot of backyard space, particularly if you have a 1-level home. Now, if you're looking for something that has a similar vibe, a master plan community, but you're looking for a slightly larger lot, maybe check out this playlist right here and look into Queen Creek a little bit more. The lots tend to be a little bit bigger. Of course, it depends on the builder and so forth. Now, you aren't getting an acre lot for sure, but it might be a little bit bigger than Eastmark. So check it out.